Back for more Extra Points. Garen Emig and Bill Hasted, Tulsa World Sports columnist, taking a look at the week that was and the weekend that will be, focusing once again on football season. Thank you very much for tuning in, as always. Whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate your business. We always appreciate your reading. A reminder that you can catch our podcast, whether it's Bill and I doing the work or others on the staff or others in the Tulsa World Newsroom. You can download via Google, Apple, and Spotify every time we put one of these out. Like Bill is on location today, coming at us from, what'd you call it, man? The Spartan Room?
Yeah. Yep. It is the Spartan Room in the at the north end of Bixby's football stadium. So, and at the time you and I finish here, this room's going to start to fill up because Luke Has, the senior tight end for Bixby, will be presented with his Under Armour jersey. I think it's in a box right here in front of me, but I'm not going to touch it.
Put it on.
As it is, I won't.
Put it on, man.
No, I'm not going to put it on. I always like to share it, but I'm not going to burn his surprise. So, no, it's a cool event here in a little bit. Second time I've been here in a month because Parker Frederickson.
That's right.
Really good basketball senior committed to Notre Dame here in the same room about a month ago. So, yeah. Another big event here at Bixby with cookies and Gatorade. I was just telling these people in the room here, I wish I had bought stock in Gatorade about 30 or 40 years ago.
No doubt.
Is the champagne of high school kids for sure.
Is that not the truth? Or college? I usually try to grab a couple to go. Don't tell anyone.
That's all I drink. That's all I drink.
I'm ready for some hydration when I'm done working either in Norman or Stillwater. And I figure they're not going to miss a couple of Gatorades, so I stick a few in my backpack. And so fuel of champions, whether you're an athletic star or someone writing about them, I suppose.
That's right.
I'll ask, since you brought up Luke, is when you're having the type of season Bixby is in football, it's kind of hard to stand out, right? Because it seems like everyone scores every week for that team. Is any one of Coach Montgomery's guys standing out from what you know this year?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. They have two quarterbacks, right? And the way they use those quarterbacks, there's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes that Connor Kirby, the second quarterback, he's not a backup. He is the second quarterback. You kind of know on a short yardage situation, depending on field position, it's probably going to be Connor Kirby because he's such a dynamic ball carrier. But yet he has the ability for the defense to sell out on stopping Connor Kirby on third and short. He can throw a really nice ball. And so they have two complete quarterbacks, but Connor Kirby adds the run dimension in a greater way, and he's dynamic. But there was a game a couple of weeks ago where Austin Havens who transferred here from Owasso and Kirby combined to complete 79% of their passes that night. So Connor Kirby, to me, I refer to him, I think, in a column as the special sauce for Bixby, because he's such, when you talk about a quarterback run game, adding a 12th guy, he truly does do that. And I think he's the guy that, in my mind, kind of is the special guy for Bixby this year. I'm not saying best player. I'm saying he's the difference that a lot of teams can't counter. But I mean, as far as like guys playing well, oh my Lord, so many.
Name a player on the roster, I would assume, right?
Hey, where do you even start? Well, I mean, Dylan Hass is unbelievable. Dylan Hass is within the context of clean football, he's one of the most violent high school tacklers I've ever seen. Coming downhill from a safety position and knocking people around. Of course, he's committed to Arkansas, just like Luke is committed to Arkansas. Luke is, it's so interesting about Luke. We're here today for him to get a jersey, an All-American jersey from Under Armour, right? Well, for 2 years, he didn't even play football. He was committed to basketball. He's a really good basketball athlete. And so he decided, I guess before his 10th, it was before the COVID season, he got bored because there was no summer basketball. He decides, I'm going to work out with the football guys just to stay in shape. He kind of got football fever again. And here he is now an Arkansas commit and an All-American as
Wow.
a tight end at Bixby. But oh my gosh, Jersey Rob is a classic Bixby program guy. Just sells out totally for Bixby football. And there's just so, I mean, every year they have a guy like that, or guys like Jersey Rob, who has one of the great names. And is a great wrestler as well, which is another hallmark, I think, of Montgomery teams at Bixby. Is a lot of their better players are also accomplished wrestlers. So there's a toughness built into the program here. I think that you get from wrestling, but it's remarkable, because I think about this a lot. You see the Bixby players in street clothes, and you think, well, they're not genetic. They don't seem to be genetically superior to the other guys that they're facing week to week to week. But yet, I mean, you look at the roster and the sizes and the heights and weights and all, it looks very typical. Just so beautifully coached, and they're so committed to what's going on here. And they're going to lose at some point. Their streak now is the nation's longest win streak. It is the longest in the country. Never mind a state record, but
they're not losing this week.
No, they play Jinx here in the regular season finale on a Thursday, November 3rd on ESPN. And boy, that looked like a sensational matchup when it was announced. And now with all the Jinx injuries and with Bixby playing this beautifully, I'm not sure how close a game that might be. Certainly, I mean, it would be foolish to say Jinx can't beat anybody, because I've seen Jinx win a bunch of games they weren't supposed to win. 98 championship game, one of the most famous, shouldn't have won, but did win Jinx games of all time. You were on the call that night.
Yeah, that's right.
I forgot.
I remember that one well, Bill. Yeah, that's right. I can still see Ben Bowling hitting his brother Jared for a touchdown on 4th down, like 40 yards.
Was that game at Stillwater?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I
pre Boone Pickens Stillwater. That was the old Lewis Field.
Well, I enjoy championship games in any venue, and I thought Tulsa Chapman Stadium was really a nice place for the championship games. But I got to say, Garen, I really do like the setup at Edmond. It's perfect. It's a 10,000 seat stadium. When you have 6,000 there for a high school championship game, it feels like a big crowd. Where if you have 6,000 at Boone Pickens, it's like, eh.
Yep, that's right.
Lucas just walked in to get a cookie. Nah. If you're an All-American, you get a cookie.
You can get what you want if you're an All-American.
Right.
Anywhere you want.
Good. So anyway, big day at Bixby.
That's right.
Big year at Bixby. Big era at Bixby.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. Week in, week. I wrote this last week, and I believe it. I think to some extent that what they're doing now is being overlooked and kind of taken for granted.
Well,
so it's good for us to spend 5 minutes here at the top, kind of giving them some props.
Pray for Westmore. I think that's who Bixby's opponent is this week. That's not going to go well at all for the Jaguars.
No. And that's another thing I wrote last week is I'm so impressed by Lauren Montgomery's ability to keep these guys at a maximum level of preparation and motivation, because the starters only get to play a half. Or maybe a half and one possession, like they did last week against BA. They beat Broken Arrow by 60.
I saw that. Yes.
Crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. A couple of Spartans are headed into a big game. A couple of former Spartans are headed into a big game. Bill, I wanted to talk to you about this one a lot today. Your time permitted. The Preley brothers and the Oklahoma State Cowboys host Texas. It is the centerpiece game this weekend for Oklahoma fans. The Sooners are off. TU plays Friday night. OSU has to bounce back after losing a game that it looked like it was going to win for 3 hours, right? The double overtime loss at TCU last week. Mike Gundy has done pretty well against Texas the last several years. this matchup, you think, sets up pretty well despite all of Texas' talent offensively at the skill positions. I think the Cowboys have a better overall defense. I think the lines are actually pretty even. The lines of scrimmage, that is. It's going to be a matter of whether Sanders plays better, more consistently than he did against TCU, which means you got to ask how his shoulder's feeling. And can the Cowboys, if they don't have a Bijan Robinson to hand the ball to, can they do enough, right, in the run game to counteract what Robinson and Rashawn Johnson are going to give the Longhorns? How do you feel about this game? Does this set up well in your opinion?
It's interesting that because I saw the play as you did when it happened in the Alabama game, but there's no way Quinn Ewers is 100%. There's no way. So he's, we've got kind of a battle of bum shoulders here. Presumably, at least what we're all hearing is that Sanders has an issue with the shoulder.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just unbelievable that before 2010, OSU all time was 2-22 against Texas. All time, 1-15 in Austin, and now since 2010, which I kind of consider the start of the modern era of Oklahoma State football, because Whedon, Dana Holgorsen, Gundy joined forces with Justin Blackman, and OSU football hadn't been the same since. And then what is OSU's record against Texas since? 8-4 since 2010, 6-1 in Austin, and and Gundy now is 8-9 straight up overall against Texas. So when it looked for several years like he would never beat Texas. So does it set up well at Stillwater on homecoming? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Now, but if you look at the state of the Cowboys with the uncertainty related to Sanders physically,
right,
and OSU's run game has been garbage. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's garbage. And then so here I am sitting at Bixby right now after scratching together some notes this morning, and I couldn't escape from this that the most accomplished running back in Oklahoma the last 2 years was Braylin Preley. Nobody could tackle him. And he was a priority recruit for Oklahoma State. And Mike has a history of playing freshmen at the running back position. Justice Hill, Keith Toston, Kendall Hunter, Joseph Randall, several. And so, but then you look.
Did Chuba play as a freshman? I can't remember the.
Yes, yeah,
he did. Didn't
he? He wasn't like Chuba yet, but he was.
Right.
He got some reps. Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you go down the stat sheet for Oklahoma State, and Braylon doesn't have a single carry this year, not a single carry. And I'm like, you knew he was undersized when you recruited him, and now. Is that a reason he's not on the field? I don't get this, because he's not going to grow. If you're waiting on him to get bigger and stronger, he may get stronger. He's not going to get much bigger, if at all. But who cares? Let me tell you something. He has unbelievable vision.
Mm-hmm.
He has an unbelievable ability. You hear about like a guy can do something in a phone booth, and he's. Braylin Preley could escape a tackler in a phone booth. He is very elusive. His change of direction is unbelievable. And I'm like, Mike has complained after several games about the lack of production from the run game. And you got Braylin Preley, the 2-time state player of the year. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the most accomplished running back of the last several years in Oklahoma. And he's covering punts for you. I mean, I'm like, give it a look. Mm-hmm. What do you have to lose? I mean, and it was my understanding. Not understanding. This is what Braylon told me straight up, that throughout his recruiting, he was told he would play a combination role, Garen, of running backs, slot receiver, probably a heavier emphasis on catching than running with the football. But when you see now that you're without your quarterback, your run game is just very ineffective. What in the world are you waiting on? Give this kid a chance. Give Braylin Preley a chance.
Well, Gundy was pressed, not so much about Braylin Preley, but about the other 2 freshmen that he has put in at running back, in spots, right behind Dominic Richardson this week. And that would be Jaden Nixon and Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon got 1 touch against TCU last week, Bill, and he was going to be a pass. He was going to throw after receiving a toss from Sanders. Nixon's a guy that we saw go end to end for a kickoff return, big kickoff return touchdown against Baylor a couple of weeks ago. But so you press Gundy on the fact that we've reached the point of the season. His first running back's getting beat up, because every starting running back everywhere is getting beat up. It's not just Dominic Richardson.
Right.
Gundy acknowledges this. Then you press him, Bill, on, well, why not give Nixon and Gordon a shot? You mentioned Preley, but those are the two guys on the depth chart. And there remains some hesitancy about, there's things they don't know. There are things you've got to trust. And all of that is fair, but you bring up a good point. Whereas he's been, I think, more careful about other positions, I think quarterback most famously, in terms of putting young guys in ahead of schedule. He's at least opened the door at running back. So I wonder if maybe this is the weekend. It's an awfully big game to change gears, but this is the weekend where he gives Richardson a little bit more help there. I don't know if it'll be Preley, but it might be Gordon and or Nixon.
It baffles me, though, because so many of the Gundy teams I covered were a legitimate 3 deep at tailback. Mm-hmm. And he was not afraid to go to a third tailback, in meaningful situations. Mm-hmm. Bo Johnson in 2008, and even like in 2011, Herschel Sims got carries in games even before they became blowouts. And so, and like, I remember Keith Toston, who was kind of a lightly regarded guy out of the Houston area, in fact, out of the Galveston area. And they handed him the ball about 8 times in a scrimmage in August when he was a true freshman. Mm-hmm. And he just beat everybody. He just cut everybody to pieces. He was hard to tackle. And I mean, I'm like, at some point at that position, more than most, you can kind of trust a young guy, because it ain't rocket science, but you can trust a young guy. It's a lot different than trusting a freshman left tackle. I mean, you can hand him the football and let his instincts take over and see what you got there. And so you watch Nixon run that kickback at Waco, and I've watched Braylin Preley here for 4 years at Bixby, and you're like, and these guys need to have the football in their hands. Mm-hmm. Much, much greater frequency. Of course, Braylin hadn't added it all yet, except a couple of passes, I think. But that's the X factor for OSU, not only Saturday for me, but the rest of the way, in terms of doing something on a grand stage, or having the opportunity to do something on a grand stage, and to keep themselves in the playoff conversation.
Yeah,
they got to be a better run team, because otherwise, without that, it's a gaping hole in their ability to win games.
Well, and specific to Texas, I just don't. They got to get to the 30s, man, because they're not going to keep that offense. I mean, I thought they played really well defensively a week ago, and it finally caught up with them. They kept limiting TCU to field goals until the dam broke a little bit in the fourth quarter, and the Frogs got a couple of touchdowns to send the game to overtime. Texas isn't going to wait that long to score touchdowns Saturday, not with Ewers, Robinson, Worthy, JT Sanders. That's a player that OSU hasn't seen yet. They got a taste of what a future NFL receiver looks like in Quentin Johnston for TCU last week. Worthy he doesn't have that kind of size, but he's got more speed. He's every bit as dangerous. Sanders is I know the term freak is used a lot by coaches and media when it comes to players. This kid's a freak. He's Jermaine Gresham all over again in terms of a tight end who actually plays more like a wide receiver. This is a dangerous game for OSU's defense. If they had to score 44 to beat TCU in double overtime a week ago, they might have to score 44 in regulation to win Saturday against that offense.
Quentin Johnston would look great in a Dallas Cowboy uniform. He would.
He'd look great in any NFL uniform, but I know what you're saying.
I really, really like him. OSU wins this game. If the front seven has a really special day with regard to pressuring getting in Ewer's head and getting him off schedule. That's the way they win the game. And if Sanders, presumably he's gotten treatment around the clock and he feels better Saturday than he felt. What did I see or hear fourth quarter and overtime the other day? Was he 2 of 13 passing the football? Is that what I heard?
He was, I think, 9.
The one meaningful throw he hit late in the game, the only one, was the fourth down, the beautiful clutch.
First overtime, right.
Yeah. But, so hopefully for OSU's sake, Sanders feels better, Garen, than he did when he went down there. I guess what, though, if you listen to Mike Gundy, we don't know for sure that he's actually got an injury issue. So
I don't know if we're going to listen to Mike Gundy Monday. We're not going to know if the backup snapper has any injury issue. I think Mike's a little uptight right now, and I would be too, as I wrote in the column, that if a quarterback you had to have, even more than the typical starting quarterback, if you have to have him because you just don't have the experience behind him, and if he's got a bum shoulder, which I take it as a pretty important body part for a quarterback.
Yeah,
this is Mike's got a reason to be a little anxious. I get it. I asked him, Bill, on Monday if this felt like an elimination game in terms of the Big 12 race. He sort of brushed it off, which is fine. But I got it has to be, right, because you lose a second game and you lose a second game to a team you're going to be fighting with to get to Arlington, TCU, and then to Texas. You're in a little trouble all of a sudden. I know they've got K-State the next week, and that's a must-win whether OSU beats the Longhorns or not. But you can't go to Manhattan with 2 conference losses and expect to find your way back to Arlington.
Right, and not to mention, let's say OSU holds it together, and anyway, if it's a do or die with regard to staying in the playoff window and go into the Big 12 championship game, if OSU has a do or die situation in Bedlam in Norman, and you think OU won't find a way to have their best day,
yeah.
No, I've seen it too many times.
Yeah, right.
So Mike doesn't want to have to carry that but he will. That'll be. I bet you anything. It's that kind of a game for Oklahoma State, and I have to go. I'm not going to rat out the guy who sent me the text after the Texas game, but I said, I was remarking to him about the value of a reliable backup quarterback, obviously, because that was the day that so many backups around the country in pinch hit roles played really well.
That's right.
And you saw what happened with the Sooners, and so a guy as well as I do, but he messages me, and I say, this is what happens when you don't have a viable quality guy behind the starter, and he says Dylan Gabriel would not have made a difference in this game. I'm like, BS, come on now. And then Dylan Gabriel comes back, and you see the difference. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of expecting OU to they're not the worst team in the league. I don't care what their record is. I don't care where their standing is in the Big 12. They're not the worst team. And they're, if Brent Venables is the kind of coach that I've known for 20 years, if he's still the guy I believe he is, and they're going to get better in season. They don't have the capability to become a great team, but they certainly have the ability to get better. And that's my hope, is that Bedlam is a high stakes, as it usually is a high stakes showdown for Oklahoma State to win it and go to the Big 12 or lose it, and they don't. That's what I hope for. I want that game to have as high a stakes as possible.
Well, then the Cowboys had better strap it up, as they say, and beat Texas. Hey,
listen, I covered most of these Texas OSU games since 2010, and I would say in 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 of those games, OSU clearly had better personnel, a more talented roster, which is mind-boggling and good for OSU. But come on, Texas. And by roster, I don't mean stars attached to their names coming out of the recruiting process. I mean guys in that moment,
right?
Football ability. So OSU has beaten Texas in years when probably OSU didn't have any business beating Texas. But 2015 is the ultimate example. But of course Texas kind of coughed that one up, and OSU got the benefit of one of the great or horrible calls of all time, depending on your side on the deal.
Right.
Remember the defensive holding in the tackle box?
Yeah.
Right over the nose. Yeah. Nobody had ever seen it before, and I haven't seen it since, actually. So, but yeah, it's to go way back to your question, does this set up well for OSU? I think it does. Mm-hmm. If Sanders feels a little better than he did a week ago, and if they don't just get cooked by Texas's playmakers, which all starts with Colin Oliver and those guys up front. Yep. Trace Ford looks great. Mm-hmm. You know, you kind of wondered how's he going to be coming back from, really devastating situation, and he looks great. So, I mean, this is a big opportunity for OSU's pressure guys to steal the show on Saturday.
That's right. And one more point to that. The Cowboys played it conservatively in terms of the pass rush against Duggan against TCU last week because they were worried about him breaking contain, number one, and they were worried, number two, about putting too much stress on the secondary. TCU came into the game with the most yards per play in any team in college football. And so what Derek Mason asked that defensive line to do was to get at Duggan without any help. I don't think he plays it that conservatively against Texas. I think that as good as those guys up front are, to your point, Bill, I think they've got to be more exotic in terms of how they get after Ewers.
Right.
He won't run like Duggan did.
That's right. No, he's more of his window of playmaking is a fraction what Duggan's is. So that's why I think this is a big opportunity game for the pressure guys for the front.
Yep.
OSU defensive front. Yeah.
Real quick before the jersey presentation. We haven't talked about TU football, it seems like, in about a month. The Hurricane 2-4 going into the second half of its season. Game Friday night at Temple. They're a 2-touchdown favorite. I take it they'll be okay there. Temple's they're just lousy. I don't know how else to say it. They're one of the worst offenses in college football. They got a decent pass rush, but that's about it. The question really for you, Bill, is any sense that this is where they were a year ago? Before they went 4-2 and made a bowl game, won the Myrtle Beach Bowl. There's some familiar names around from last year, even if Jackson Player is not there any longer. Running backs changed, Shamari Brooks. But what do you think? Is there a sense that this can be done again?
Well, I mean,
you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's Phillips' message every day is, this. Hello, we don't like that we're here, but we have done this before and we can do it again. As far as Temple goes, Temple is a perfect to get a little momentum going into the second half. Temple's a perfect opponent. I think this is their third coach since Matt Rule.
Maybe.
Maybe a coach, an interim, and a coach. I don't remember.
It's Stan Drayton, which and he was at Texas. We've talked a lot about the Longhorns. I think he was an assistant with the Longhorns before taking this job. This is his first year. I can't tell you who he replaced. I don't remember who he replaced.
I was stunned to see that it's a 6:30 kick on ESPN2. I thought they might kick this one on Saturday at I was very pleased that it's a 6:30 kick, except it's Friday.
Yeah,
and I have to record it and watch it after the fact because I'm going to go watch McLean and Wagner that night, and I'm really excited about that to see what I'm going to call the Hospitality Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Wagner, but no, I mean it's a perfect game for TU to it's a mismatch from a personnel standpoint. So go play really well, get Bren back in a good rhythm, and then attack the second half, except the second half schedule is difficult. But they did it last year. It's just there's a maddening consistency with TU football, and this is it. Just, you at the end of last season, you felt pretty good about everything, but then you remember that opening night they lost to UC Davis, and that set them on a course to be in trouble by midseason. This is interesting to me. I didn't. Philip now has coached 90 games at Tulsa, Garen. There's only been 2 other guys in the history of the program who coached that many games at TU. Gus Henderson, 100 years ago, coached 100 games at TU, and then Dave Rader coached 130 games at TU. And so Philip's been there a long time now. His record's 40 and 50. And then you ask, well, is that good enough? And you say, well, you balance Philip's record against the resources he has and the amount of money that the university is willing to spend on football. And you ask, and then you look at the guys he's had drafted, and you say, is this about as good as TU can hope for in football? Is Philip maximizing what that school can do in major college football, or could a different coach get like Sonny Dykes TCU results that quick?
Right.
I mean? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But I know it's got to be so frustrating to be a Tulsa football and basketball fan. But no, I mean, they'll go. The highlight Friday will be Keelan Stokes becoming the career leader.
That's right. That's right.
And breaking a 57-year-old program record. That's amazing.
Isn't it?
Howard Willie has held that record 57 years. So impressive. I mean, he was on the unbeaten 72 Dolphins.
Yeah.
That famous team. I mean, and this is the 50th anniversary of that team. That's crazy. Keelan Stokes, and he's like 29 yards. Yeah, 29 yards.
That's right.
Plant Howard Twilley as the all-time receiver. And they've had so many good receivers there. It's just remarkable that record has stood for that long. And it shows how far ahead of the curve that Glenn Dobbs was at that time with, tempo and passing game and all of that. So congratulations. That family, that Keelan Stokes family has been part of the TU program now for a decade.
That's right.
When I was on the beat, Kevin was a freshman in 13. So Kevin was a great kid. I don't know Keelan very well, but good for him to get that record. And like you say, TU's favored for a reason. Their personnel are a lot better. Hopefully in a TV game, Bryn lights it up, has a great night, and they get a little mojo and go into the second half and replicate what they did last year.
You mentioned as an outro here this week, really glad you mentioned this, sort of the continuation of what you wrote about recently, the McLean situation, coming off that terrible shooting the night of the football game. Was it against Miami? I think it was, wasn't it? I forgot the details. And the aftermath, you're looking again for something good out of something terrible. You found something really cool with regard to what Wagner's doing. And it continues. The continuation of that story is Friday night then? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, well, right. Except that, McLean, like Cushing stepped up too and said, we'll play you. And I mean, and so McLean went to Cushing last week. Cushing's fantastic. And Cushing won that game. So McLean resumed its season last week, but this was supposed to have been a McLean home game.
That's right.
But TPS is going to address what they think are some problems with regard to football venue security throughout the district. And so this game was moved from McLean to Wagner Friday. Dale Condick said, of course we'll play you. And Dale Condick also said, not only are we going to play McLean, but we're going to give McLean 100% of the ticket revenue, because this was supposed to have been their home game, right? So, and that'll be about $5,000, and that's a great gesture.
Big deal, yeah.
One of the kings of Oklahoma football, Dale Condick, one of the great guys. So, and I want to go watch that game. So I'll see the Jinx Trojans on Thursday for the first time since the Backyard Bowl. And I'm very interested to see how many of their injured guys they have back now and how that's going to look. On Thursday in the game, they should win pretty comfortably, I would think. And then TJ Eckert's so loud. TJ,
I knew that was TJ before. I knew it the first time I heard it. I said, "What's TJ?" Of course, TJ is there. I was about to ask why, and then I thought, "Well, that's a stupid question." Of course, TJ is going to be at Bixby for something important. So, ladies and gentlemen, where's your All-American jersey?
Yeah, they don't have any of those. They don't have any of those, unfortunately. You know,
you got robbed, man.
You covered those Bixby teams. You know we weren't good enough to have anybody.
That's a shot at me, I think, for being an old bleep.
Ooh, I didn't think about that backhanded compliment. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all right, man. I know.
So TJ, formerly quarterback the Bixby Spartans.
Yeah.
So, in one really profound statement here, how do you summarize what you're seeing here over the last 4 years at Bixby?
Well, I mean, it can be summed up with last week. It's pretty crazy. So my senior year, my last game, we lost Broken Arrow in the playoffs, like 56-20, something like that. And then now, you know, they beat them 77-7. You would have never thought then that this would happen now.
I would imagine.
Only 10 years. I mean, it's not like it's been 50 years.
Right,
so
right.
Awesome. It's been crazy.
It is crazy. It's so impressive. All right. I'll let TJ get set up, and you and I can
see you, Garen.
Thank you, TJ.
Hey, TJ. All right. You got a party to get to. Yep.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of people in here any minute now.
Yep.
But no, I love the OSU Texas game. I love that game. It's been kind of like Larry Merchant used to say a lot, that boxing was the theater of the unexpected. The OSU Texas game in a lot of years has been the theater of the unexpected.
I like that. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And of course, Larry Merchant, little trivia on our way out the door, you know, he went to OU, and a New Yorker like Al Eschbach. Al Eschbach actually hails from New Jersey, but Al Eschbach went to OU because he read in Playboy magazine that it was one of the top 10 party schools in the country.
Yeah.
And they had great football. And he said, sign me up. So that's how he ended up down here. And he never left.
Well, we all pick schools.
Larry Merchant on Broadway saw Oklahoma and loved it, and thought, he kind of romanticized about it, thought, I'd like to live down there. And he came down here and went to school. Larry Merchant, who became a Hall of Fame sports writer and HBO boxing commentator, one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Theater of the Unexpected, Saturday in Stillwater. Bank it.
Theater of the Unexpected is what we should call this program. But instead, it's Extra Points with Bill Haston. I'm Garen Emig. Enjoy the football. Anything else you get involved with between now and next week, we will talk to you then.